Hello! Alright, Steve here from They Get Around, a travel and landscape photography based blog trying to offer everybody that's interested in learning about how to improve their photography and help them actually be able to go abroad when they do go on holiday and take memorable photos and show their friends when they get back home. So if you're interested, check the link down below. We've got some cool photography tips along with some photos that I've actually taken myself while traveling, so I'd like to share those with you guys. But first, the reason why I'm here today is to share with you 10 simple photography tips to help improve your photography game and move it from one level to the next. Okay, now first tip, this is going to sound very basic, but you're going to need to know your equipment. You're going to need to know your lenses, your camera, everything. It sounds very basic, but it's something that a lot of people overlook, and especially when it comes to sharpness in terms of lenses. Basically, try and become a little bit more comfortable with your camera. Second tip I can give, this is phenomenal. This was able to move my photography from one level to another very easily when it comes to editing, is changing everything from JPEG to RAW. By shooting in RAW, what you can do is it offers you a lot more flexibility when it comes to editing. So if you do underexpose or overexpose a photo, that way it gives you the chance to actually correct this in post-production. Enough, it is phenomenal, and the amount of change that you can give. You're almost like a god in a way when it comes to post-editing. Now, next tip I can give, this is more to do with composition, and that is that center, direct center of the photo is not always the best. So you don't always want to have your subject in the direct center. Perhaps a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right would actually work, and actually draws the viewer in slightly more, and it becomes a little bit more of an engaging photo. So just try and remember that next time you're at a new location, and your natural instinct is to line it up and smack it bang in the middle. Perhaps it may just look a little bit better, just shift it just to the right. Now, next thing I can say, now this goes back to knowing your equipment just slightly, but you need to know when or when not to use a flash. Flashes can dilute and overexpose situations and the scenery, so you need to know when to use it, especially if you're into portraitures, as it can actually over illuminate your subject. So know the distance and how strong your flash is, and know when the best instances are or when to use a flash. A lot of people may not know what ISO is, and basically ISO is another means of controlling your light exposure. So basically, by increasing your ISO to its highest level, your camera is becoming very super sensitive to light, and by bringing your ISO all the way down to its lowest setting, which is generally about 100, your camera is not very sensitive to light. The disadvantage of having an ultra sensitive sensor when it comes to ISO is that the picture becomes very grainy. So what happens is that if you're using it on an ISO of say 6400, the image will be very grainy. Mind you, you'll be able to take the photo in low lighting, but it will be very grainy. Now, my best point of advice here would be try and use your ISO at a level that is as low as possible. Now, it sounds basic, but a lot of people don't realize it, and they try and still shoot their ISO up at very extreme levels when they don't necessarily need to, when they could just simply change their f-stop or simply their shutter speed. So try and use your ISO at the lowest level as possible, and reduce that grain, and then that way you'll actually have nice, smooth, crisp images. If you're wanting the smooth, silky smooth rivers and creeks, one thing that you can do is use slower shutter speeds. By basically what you're doing is the camera isn't actually, it's staying open for a longer period of time. So if you're using a fast shutter speed, basically the shutter closes very quickly and that's it. Whereas if you're using a slower shutter speed, it takes a longer amount of time for the actual shutter to actually complete its action. So on a fast one, it'll open very quickly, whereas on a slower shutter speed, it'll just remain open, then close. It takes a lot longer for it to close. And by taking this longer amount of time, what is actually happening is that it's letting in more light, and by doing that, it's letting in more activity. and what is actually happening. And through that activity, it could be people walking, it could be clouds, it could be a river or a stream. And generally, this is how people actually come about creating those smooth, silky streams, is by using slower shutter speeds. Now, this will bring me to my next point. In order to use most of this, you will need a tripod. That's what I'm using right now. And tripods are a godsend when it comes to slower shutter speeds. So buy a tripod so that way you can actually enable yourself to use these slower shutter speeds, because if you're holding a camera using slower shutter speeds, what will actually happen, anything lower than say 60th of a second, there will be camera shake. If you were to put that same camera with a shutter speed of a 60th of a second, which isn't the slowest, but it's not the fastest, on a tripod, it'll be fine. Another tip I can give is very minor, is perhaps try moving your camera vertically. Try shooting in portraiture mode. By shooting in portraiture mode, you're going to offer and give yourself a unique perspective of the actual scenes, and you may end up walking away with a different photo. So this way you can actually put different aspects into focus and focus on those within your photo. Now, one major thing, this is the second last point, number 9, is you need to learn from your mistakes. Now, if you're walking away and finding that you're very frustrated with your photos, and you're not sure why, you need to sit down and look at the bad photos and try and work out what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. Because a lot of the time, if you're doing something wrong, you're going to be doing it over your entire body of work. And there could be one simple little thing. And finally, when you buy a DSLR, there's no need to go shooting in full manual. You can go and shoot in automatic for a while to help build up your confidence, because if you start shooting in manual straight away, you're going to find it's a very steep learning curve, and it can become it's very harsh on a person's confidence, because the photos won't turn out the exact same way as how you have envisioned them. Now, if you shoot in auto, at least this way you're going to be able to build up some confidence. After that, I'll strongly suggest moving to shutter priority or aperture priority. You can shoot in auto for a while and help build up your confidence. I've shared these tips with you guys in the hope that I can actually help improve your photography, as I know these tips have helped improve mine. Now, once again, if you would like to know more about photography tips or anything to do with equipment, you can check out They Get Around. Otherwise, if you just want to check out more of my photos, you can do that also on They Get Around or my Instagram account, which I'll have the link below. So otherwise, guys, I hope these tips have helped you quite a lot, and well, happy shooting, I suppose. All right, anyways, later, guys.